Sports 910. Benjamin Garcia filling in for my guy Jody Ayler, who is back tomorrow. You've gotten a dose of Chris Schubert, who has filled in. You've gotten a dose of me, who has filled in, Benjamin Garcia. You'll get the main course, Jody Ayler, back tomorrow on The Drive. As I'm sure you're ready to hear that deep voice of a man in Jody Ayler back on the show. I hope he's not listening right now so he doesn't hear that I described him as a deep voice of a man. But either way, we'll be back tomorrow. You know, we talked about some NFL news going down the pipeline. We talked Darren Waller, Hassan Reddick's not showing up, Jamar Chase will be back, Christian McCaffrey is the cover athlete for Madden NFL 25. But there's another thing that kind of slipped under the radar yesterday. Mike Tomlin gets a 3-year deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers, a 3-year deal extension, I guess I should say, with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know, there was a lot of speculation from people like myself that this was going to be the last year, this last upcoming year for Mike Tomlin. I'm pretty surprised that the Pittsburgh Steelers decided to continue to go down this route with Mike Tomlin. I understand Mike Tomlin's a great coach, and he is going to go down as a Hall of Fame level head coach. But, I mean, like, at some point, you do have to push back on this. It's where I worry about with the Arizona Cardinals. I love Jonathan Gannon. I think he's a great leader of men. I think his eye for talent and his eye for really good head coaches is a real thing. And I enjoy that about Jonathan Gannon. One thing that I will always hold against Jonathan Gannon, if the Cardinals go on a 3-game losing streak, if things maybe take a turn for the worst at some point, my one thing with Jonathan Gannon is very simply, he's a defensive coach, and this is an offensive league. And he could get outclassed by Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, not because of his own fault, but because the rules of the NFL have skewed so far offensive that defensive head coaches like Jonathan Gannon, whom I love and adore as the Arizona Cardinals head coach, just are playing at a disadvantage. They're playing with one hand tied behind their back. So when you look at this Mike Tomlin deal, the Steelers kind of continue to go backwards instead of forward. Tomlin is a great head coach. 10 years ago, he'd be seen as one of the elite head coaches in the NFL. But he's not there anymore, and it's not his own fault. He clearly can get more out of lesser talent. But this team has fallen short of expectations year in and year out. Pittsburgh Steelers fans wear the hasn't had a losing season in however many years like a badge of honor, like it's a Super Bowl trophy. The standard for Pittsburgh will always be Lombardi trophies. Always. And making the playoffs and getting routed by Buffalo or getting routed by the Chiefs, whoever it may be, isn't cutting it for the Steelers. So I'm surprised the Rooney family and the Pittsburgh Steelers have decided to double down on this trend. I would have moved off of Mike Tomlin because you would have gotten one of the best head coaches on the market because you are a stable organization with good ownership who gives a long leash to head coaches. You have a long history of that. Those are all things that would work towards you. A Ben Johnson might have taken that job knowing darn good and well he could have had some time to find his own quarterback, which a lot of teams don't allow that. So as much as I love Jonathan Gannon, and as much as I think Mike Tomlin's a good head coach, they're not offensive guys. And in a consistently shifting offensive league, they could get outclassed. And Mike Tomlin has not lived up to expectations aside from not having a losing season. And they might make the playoffs this year because 7 teams get in, and they'll get routed in the first round because Russell Wilson or Justin Fields is their quarterback, and both of those guys stink. So Tomlin, although has stopped his team from going into the tank and being a full-scale garbage, is mediocrity really any better? And to really drive home my point, since 2010, the only wins the Steelers have in the playoffs are against the following quarterbacks. Let me know if you think any of these guys are elite. or even good. Matt Moore, Alex Smith, and A.J. McCarron, who's currently, if I'm not mistaken, playing in the XFL right now. So Matt Moore, who I'm assuming was the Dolphins quarterback, Alex Smith, who I'm assuming was with the Chiefs at this time, and A.J. McCarron, former Bama quarterback A.J. McCarron. That's their wins against quarterbacks in the playoffs since 2010. 3 playoff wins. Everything else is a one and done or you're not making it. That ain't cutting it in Pittsburgh. I'm surprised the Pittsburgh Steelers organization doubled down on this, because I would have moved off and had my pick of the litter of head coaches, because that's the kind of job the Steelers have. They would have had people lined up for that job. Ben Johnson would have took that job. Anyone would have. Long leash, good ownership, stable organization. You don't get all 3 of those all the time in the NFL, if really ever. So as Dewey once said in Malcolm in the Middle, the future is now, old man. Either get with the times or be prepared to be dominated. Or in the Steelers' case, be prepared to be mediocre. And it's why I'll always have a little bit of a gripe against Jonathan Gannon, because I gotta be honest, the NFL has consistently skewed recently towards offense, and Jonathan Gannon's not an offensive guy. And that makes me worry, and that makes me think twice about Jonathan Gannon and his ability to lead this team to a championship. It's not his fault. It's not an indictment on him because the NFL changed the rules on everyone all of a sudden. But offense matters in the NFL. It matters a lot. It matters more than defense. This idea that defense wins championships is thrown out the window. It's thrown away. It's in the garbage can. It's not a real thing anymore. It used to be. It's not anymore. And that's what I feel like is a worry for the Arizona Cardinals, and even more so the Pittsburgh Steelers, who keep doubling and tripling down on this Mike Tomlin thing.